We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. As chassid for learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. Okay, we're going to start on the Mishnah on Chav Zayin on page 27b. Starts off Nedarim Daf. A person can take a vow, starting right where you left off. Nedarim Daf.
Could you just summarize that asmachta, the condition that you had no intent?
I didn't go through it. I see there's a round here. I didn't go through the whole round, so I don't want to.
Okay, when you get a chance, okay. I'm just not sure if everyone picked that up.
Right. Okay. So if someone is allowed to take a vow to a murderer, and I guess the murderer may be taking something from his, or he could say that you don't want to take that because that is whatever. You take any vow that would discourage the person from either taking that or killing him, maybe. But haramim is really a robber. These are like bandits. They come in and they take spoils. L'muchsin, and for a tax collector. So what we're saying is that a person's allowed to take a vow to avoid losing his property.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you? We just started.
Where are we?
We just started the Mishnah on Chav Zayin Amud Beis on the bottom.
Okay, thanks.
What is he taking a vow? She'it truma. He's saying that the food that they want to take is truma. In that way, obviously we're dealing with Jewish people that care about this. They don't care about killing and stealing, but they're not going to eat truma. Wow. People that have interesting
religious robbers.
Religious robbers.
Yeshiva, yeah.
Like the guy who won't use the
right. Okay.
There's a story about how Yana had a wooden bench to the Adam Mizuman.
Right.
He had no problem killing them afterwards.
Right.
Did you see that on Netflix?
No, never.
Yana is so what does he do? How does he take this vow? We'll see, but basically what he's going to say is that he's going to make something prohibited on himself if it's not truma. He says, I'm telling you it's truma, and look, I vow that I'm not going to eat bread or something if it's not truma, to convince the person. So he's allowed to take that vow, even though maybe it's not truma. He's convincing the person that it is truma. He's convincing because he doesn't want him to take it. He's convincing him that it's truma, so the person doesn't take it, and he takes a vow that he's not going to eat.
It's like a white line.
No, it's a
white vow.
It's a real lie. It's a real lie. But he's just taking a vow. His heart is not with this vow. He's just taking it to get this guy away.
White vow.
Truma is produce that is gifted to the Kohen, and it becomes consecrated. And a non-Kohen is not allowed to eat it. If he does eat it, there's misa b'dei shamayim, which means a death penalty from heaven. So he's trying to avoid. He's trying to get this guy away by telling him that you don't want to eat that; it's poisonous, something like that. Okay. Or he says, "Shein shel beis hamelech." It doesn't belong to me. That actually belongs to the king. And if you take it, you're going to be in real trouble. Even though it doesn't belong to the king. Okay, so we said over here that he was allowed to make these vows, even though they're not true. Now, this could be a continuation of the Mishnah before, which said Nidri Einstein. And that would really make sense. Say, Nidri Einstein, the examples over there were different. The examples are where he wasn't able to keep the vow because something happened, his son got sick, or the river, the tide rose and wasn't able to travel. Now we're saying that he's being compelled to take the vow. That these are types of vows that don't take effect. Next case. Bishame says that you can take any vow, but you can't take an oath. An oath is much more strict. By an oath, it says, Hashem will not atone for a false oath. So when he's going to take a vow like this, you have to limit it to a vow. You can't swear. Bishal says, no, he's even allowed to take an oath. The same thing would apply to an oath, that he's allowed to make up this thing to save his possessions by taking the oath.
Wait, the vow, which one is God's name?
The oath.
But these fall under unintentional.
Unintentional was actually 2 Mishnayos ago.
Yeah. that's
Now
right.
it's
Which one's
it's probably falling under the category of einus. How do they translate einus there?
Coercion?
Coercion.
No, that's only by now.
Well, that was the first.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Uh,
was the first one.
no. Oh, that was, we called it motivation. Now I'm not sure how they translate einus. Turn back one Mishnah and see there.
The last one was a change beyond one's control.
Beyond one's control. So now we're calling this under that category of beyond one's control.
This still falls under the same one.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it doesn't have to be a continuation, but if it is a continuation, it fits well.
It's like the parsha, right? Like Yitzhak Abraham, it's like saying that the wife is really the sister, like to save their lives and such.
All right, that's right. Oh, interesting.
He learned from his father.
Right. Okay.
Does the I guess the Aramaic has a one sofit for plural? Is that
Instead of a man. Yeah. That happens a lot in the Mishnayos, even though the Mishnayos are not Aramaic.
Ah.
But, like Kairin, Shema Ba'arvin, something says Arvin or Ba'arvin, but even the Kairin
And
is
that's
instead of
also-
Kairim.
for the Hebrew as well?
Yeah,
It's-
even in the Hebrew where
grammar
it's just they use nuns instead of names. Okay. Now we say they still argues on this. They still okay. New case. If the robber doesn't tell the person, make a vow to me, then Bishami says the person should not initiate the vow. This is very interesting because when we had earlier in the Masechta, we had La Yiftach Lai, and the Ran didn't learn La Yiftach Lai meant to initiate. It was the Mefarish that learned that. Ran, but over here, this is the Pshat, at least here in the Ran, that he should not initiate taking the vow. Basil says no, he can initiate the vow. He's trying to save his property. He makes a vow that that the food is truma, so the robber shouldn't take it. When he takes the vow, what he would say is that this is forbidden to me if this fact is not true. Or he can say that this is forbidden to others if this fact is not true. He's trying to say something that's going to be convincing. So the person says, the robber tells him, he's trying to take his grain. So he says, but you take that, that's truma. So he says, oh yeah, a vow to me, make a vow that it's truma. Apparently the rabbi here cares about truma.
Previously, we used patak to mean there was opening
Right,
to makzir.
right,
Nullify vow here is being used to set about taking the vow itself.
exactly.
Would you have a chasur connection in your brain? You just said 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, I'm pointing out that you're right. You're right. That previously Yiftach had 2 interpretations. It could have been, according to the Mefarish, it could have meant to initiate, but according to the Ran, previously it meant to nullify. But over here it means, we'll see soon in Rav Ashi, we'll see it towards the end of the Gemara that it still have possibly two meanings.
If the robber is so from, he probably knows his mission.
Oh, does the robber know the Mishnah? Yeah. Yeah, that's a problem. If he knows the Mishnah, then he's not going to believe them. Well, maybe the robber follows Beishamai and he wants the person to take an oath. Yeah. So Basil says he can even add in more people. We'll see in a second what this means to the vow, even though that wasn't what the person was asking him to do. Ketzad, Amalai Amar Kainim Ishti Nanisli. If this food isn't truma, then say that my wife is forbidden to have benefits from it. That's how he's trying to get the truth out of him. Amar, so the person says, if it's not truma, then my wife and children can't have benefits from it. He added in the word children. So Beishamai says, well, that you did on your own. So that is going to be prohibited. The children are going to be prohibited. It's a real vow. Regarding the woman, the wife, then it's not going to be a vow because that was a compulsion. Basil says they're both mutter. Maybe, I didn't see this in the commentary, but maybe this was based on the Gemara that you taught. If you say mutter, well, it's not that, it's more in the, if I say neder shehuter mechtasek, huter kulei, or Basil could say huter kulei. Or maybe Basil is just saying that you're allowed to add in extra things and to convince the person. Just like Basil had said, you're allowed to yiftach lebeneder. If you're allowed to initiate the vow, then you're allowed to add in more things into the vow. I have two explanations for why Basil could say that.
Wouldn't that also be considered like part of the vows and all, the whole vows and all?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That could be an explanation for this. That if part of the vows is annulled, which is the opinion of Basil, not Beishamai. And the other explanation for this is, I don't need part of it to be annulled for the whole thing to be. I don't need that logic. It's automatically annulled because Basil says you're allowed to initiate a vow, even though it's not true. You're allowed to initiate it because of the compulsion. So I don't need part of it annulled. The part of it is the whole vow, which I'm allowed to do also. Right. Okay, one of the things that we mentioned over here, there were three cases that this started. First of all, he's taking a vow first to a murderer, a robber, and a tax collector. So Vamar Shmuel says, Dina de Malchusa Dina. What are you telling me that you're allowed to get out of paying taxes by saying that it's truma, that is, and to avoid the taxes, and you're allowed to make up a story and even vow, you're not allowed to get out of taxes. Dina de Malchusa Dina. The whole premise is wrong. Talking about a tax that's not being administered fairly.
Like a graduated income tax. I'm nuts, isn't that what it is?
I'm all in. Who's administering this tax?
There's a guy.
Does the guy should have it or the?
Well, it turns out that it's a Jewish tax collector.
Working
Where's
for
it coming from? It's
King's
coming from the
IRS.
government.
Okay.
So we're saying that
So the Gaish government doesn't care about
the truma,
about truma.
right? But the guy that's collecting it, the guy that's right here,
Not collecting.
well,
Well,
I think the way it worked then was that he owed the government a certain amount of money, and then he would go around to collect it from everyone. So hopefully he did it fairly. But here, he's just taking everything that he can get. So it's because it's not going according to their income or according to how many people there are. So it's not considered fair. So he's allowed to avoid it, even though Dina de Malchusa Dina, that's only when it's being applied fairly. The next case is
So
the
it's
next.
arbitrary, you might say.
Yeah.
Tax credits, it's okay.
Yeah, you're my friend. You don't have to pay. I'll take double from the other guy across the street. So, the Bei Rabbiani Amber b'Muchasai Midmeilov. Here we're saying that there's no government behind him. He's just going around taking tax. We just called it tax, but yeah, it's really stealing.
It's like a robber.
Yeah.
Extortion.
Only the murder could prevent him.
Sometimes they have these mafias that they charge everyone, protection.
That exist.
Yeah. Okay, there's a Ran over here that is very not politically correct. I think it's worthwhile to learn it. But anyway, what the Ran says over here, what the Ran says is that Dina de Malchus Dina only applies to a non-Jewish king. Quotes from Tosfos. We're living in their land. You want to live in our land, so keep the laws. And this is the law. I'm charging you like I charge rent if I own the apartment. So you want to live in my land, you have to pay for the living here. But in Eretz Yisrael, every Jewish person has his own right to Eretz Yisrael. It's not, he doesn't need the government to live in Israel. They're not allowing him to live there. Every Jew has a right. So in Israel, you don't have to pay taxes and you don't have to follow the law of the land, according to this Ran.
There's a name of it, the law of tax
Thanks.
return.
Yeah, it's very surprising, no? This may be a logic that's being used by some Naturi Karta or those types of people that don't accept the government. I don't know.
Probably used by the Arabs.
Right.
But Israel has to still abide by foreign laws. I think that came out of the decision of Pablo.
Yeah.
They have to-
Just so we're clear, the Ran would agree though that you could cheat on your taxes if taxes weren't fair.
Yeah, I think that's clear on the Gemara. That's clear from the Gemara. The Dina de Malchus Dina only applies when it's fair.
Everybody also a whole bunch of new material. Considered in the
Yeah.
eyes of the person. So my accountant said, this is unfair and you could cheat. The accountant says, no, by the book.
That's where it gets complicated. But I think if the laws are the same for everyone, then it would be hard to get out of it not being considered fair. If this is what everyone has to pay, even though it's too much or whatever, then that's the way everyone's being treated. Okay.
Is this the actual formulation that we're seeing here by Shmuel? It's interesting, but it's attributed to him.
Yeah. This is the
This
Gemara.
is actually the place.
Well, yeah, this here and this in Gittin, and on the side it has some others. Okay. Now the next, we quote the Mishnah again. Person claims that it belongs to the king, even though it doesn't really belong to the king. We say, hey, Chinadar, how did he take the vow? Amar Amram Amar Rav. Rabbi Amram says in the name of Rav, now the way the Ran explains this Gemara is that what the person's saying is that if this doesn't belong to the king, then I'm never going to eat fruits again. Forever. Now the Gemara asks, even the Amar Yasru, if he says that it's forbidden for me to eat fruits, or fruits are forbidden, it's called perialma. Then they became forbidden. Look, it didn't belong to the king. So we said that he's allowed to get out of it. He's allowed to take the vow, and he doesn't even have to annul it. But it turns out that the Gemara is saying now, what do you mean he doesn't have to annul it? If he takes that vow, then even though in his mind he's thinking that he doesn't really mean it, but if he expresses it clearly, then we don't follow his mind. We follow what he expressed clearly. So the Gemara says, "Kivan damar yasher tzalakal pedam." Okay, so the Gemara says, "Ba'imer hayayim." It says everything is forbidden. All the fruits of the world are forbidden just for today, if doesn't belong to the king. And then I guess the day's over, and then he's allowed to eat. But the Gemara says, 1 second. What's that going to do? He was trying to get out of paying the tax, or this would exempt him from the tax if it belonged to the king. But you know what else? This could be that if it's truma, not that the guy doesn't want to eat it, but it could be that there's a rule that truma is exempt from the tax, and then if it belongs to the king, it's also exempt from the tax. Maybe that's what he means. Not that you shouldn't steal it. Oh, by the robber, he doesn't care about the tax. The robber, so he shouldn't steal it. By the truma, so he shouldn't steal it. Right? It says it belongs to the king, or it's truma, so he shouldn't steal it. By the tax, it could be that he's trying to get it out of paying the tax because he's saying that I can't eat this anyway because it's truma. I shouldn't have to pay tax on it.
Similar to like here, where the donations are taxed.
Right. Right.
For certain, like, the individual, more than that, the corporation, right? More or less.
That thing is not a tax rate.
Okay. Why is the tax collector going to accept the vow like that? That he's just for a second, he's not going to eat fruits. And then a minute later, he's going to, or for a day, he's not going to. It says, so we say like this. He says, I'm not going to eat fruits. He doesn't say the words today, and he doesn't say the words forever. He says, I'm not going to eat fruits. Now, normally, we interpret when he says, I'm not going to eat fruits, that he means forever, because he didn't say today. But when he's being compelled, coerced to make this vow, then we'll reinterpret it based on what he had in mind in his heart. Usually what he has in his heart doesn't affect what he says. Unless it matches clearly with what he said. But over here, because he didn't say anything clearly, we would interpret it in a normal case to mean what we think it means. But now we're ready to interpret it to say what we think it means in this case, which means that just for today. So when he takes the vow, it's only really prohibited for today. So it turns out that what we were learning at the beginning, that is the follow-up of before, of Nidra Yinson, it's very different than Nidra Yinson. Because over here, the vow is really taking effect. We're just saying that it's taking effect just for one day, but we're just willing to interpret it that it's only one day, even though he didn't say one day.
This is a little bit like today's Tanya. Talking about today's Tanya talks about if you have kavana or not kavana, mitzvahs, what level it goes to. So in a way, it's kind of.
Okay. Bishama Yaimer Bakal. Bishama said over here that you can take any vow, but you can't take an oath. And I guess what it would mean now is that we won't reinterpret an oath. Bishama Yaimer Mashu Madirei. Bishami says he can only take the vow what the other person is administering to him to take, but he can't add anything else in. Basil says no, he can add in other things as well to convince the person. Ketzad, what's the case? He says, if this is not true what I'm saying, then my wife can have benefit from me. And he adds in the word, my wife can have benefit from me. Well, Bishami says it's only going to work for, the vow will work for the children. And for the wife, it would be not a vow. And Phil says that they're both mutter. He was allowed to add that in. According to the way we explained it, it was really just reinterpreting. When he adds in, I guess, what are we going to do? We're going to say for the children, we won't reinterpret it. I have a question on this. We have to translate it according to however the meaning is. Follow what I'm asking?
I think it's similar to yesterday where the domino effect, if you refer to the last one, that's just there excluded. If you refer to the first one,
We had a lot of props.
You had the props. I had no idea what.
Okay. You get what I'm asking here? And how is it going to work? According to the way we just interpreted this Gemara in the last piece, the person was saying that if what I'm saying is not true, then I'm not going to eat fruits today. But it didn't say today. It said I'm not going to eat fruits. And we interpreted it to mean today because of he was being coerced to take this vow. So we're going to reinterpret it to that shit, what we think we would like. Now, when he's not being, when they're not to take a vow that his wife should benefit from it, they're just telling him, and he had in this children to be more convincing. But how do we reinterpret it that it should, according to Beishamai, that it should only mean partial, that it should mean today for his wife and forever his children? I don't know how that's going to work. Okay, I don't know. I didn't notice any comment on that. Amar Rav Huna says Tana that we have a brisa that looks very similar to what we learned in the Mishnah, but there's also big differences. Brisa says like this: Bishama Yermim Yiftach Le B'Shvua. Bishama says you can't initiate with an oath. The problem with this is that it sort of contradicts our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says Bishama Yermim Yiftach Le B'Neder, can initiate a vow. Brisa says you can initiate an oath. Gemara is going to say can initiate an oath that sounds like a vow you can initiate. It contradicts our Mishnah. Let's go for it. Bishil says you can even initiate an oath. Okay, that we didn't know. But we didn't know that he was allowed to take it. Bishmai, straight away. The Bishamai Bishvuhad la yiftach lay habenet yiftach lay. But he can initiate a vow. But the problem is the Mishnah initiate a vow, and what we're deriving from the Brisa is that he can initiate a vow. What's derived from the Brisa contradicts what it says clearly. So in another process, if you read what the Brisa says, he can't initiate the oath. But let's say he didn't initiate it, Hameidar. But if the person tells him to take the oath, it says vow, what it means to take the oath. Not allowed to take the oath. And as if the other person is prove it to me that what you're saying is true. Take an oath. He is allowed to.
That's honest.
That's honest. But Beishamai said that he wasn't allowed to do that for an oath. To do that for a vow. And from the Brisa, we're seeing that he's only not allowed to initiate the oath, but if it was being administered to him, he would be allowed to. Contradicts the but that he's not allowed to take the oath. Well, the Gemara answers like this: Tana masnisin b'neder leidiach kechem the Beishamai. The Tana of the Mishnah is trying to show us how strict Beishamai is. That you can't even initiate the neder, the vow. Tana Brisa b'shvua leidiach kechem. But the author of the Brisa was talking about oaths to tell how lenient Beisil is. That not only is he allowed to take an oath, but he's even allowed to initiate them. So it starts, of course, with Beishamai. Why does it start with Beishamai if that's not the point? Because Beisil always said the opinion of Beishamai first. That's why the halacha is like Beisil, because they were more humble. They would always introduce their teaching by saying the other opinion first. Well, what the Bryce is telling us is that Beisil was so lenient, not only is allowed to take an oath, but he's even allowed to initiate them. The Mishnah was telling me, so notice that the machlekes here is a polar machlekes. Beishamai says you can not only can't you initiate, you can't even take the oath. Beisil says not only can you take the oath, you can even initiate the oath. That's why they spoke about different things. Okay. Ravashi Yamar, Ravashi has a different. He says that what's in the Mishnah, actually, we learned the Brisa, is not a continuation of the people that are coming to force him to give them tax or to and he's saying now that they shouldn't take it. What's happening over here is this was your comment before. He's saying you're not allowed to annul a shvua. So it's a totally yiftach over here doesn't mean to initiate, it means to annul, to use as an opening. Bisil says you are allowed to. So it has nothing to do with the case before, where are you allowed to take an oath when you're being coerced, There's nothing to do with that. Are you allowed to go to the Rav and get it annulled? Not are you allowed to go. Is the Rav allowed to annul it? You can do whatever you want. But the Rav can't annul a shvua according to Beis Shammai. Because it's much stricter. Hashem doesn't forgive someone that violates, but he would forgive someone that violates a vow. So the heter of getting out of a vow is not such a light thing. I mean, it says parachas ba'avir, the Gemara in Chagiga, at the Nedarim. Where does it say in the Torah that you go to someone and he takes away the vow? It's a tradition, but we don't have a real basis for it. Parachas ba'avir. Floats in the air. So we don't have a substantial source for it, but it works. Grounded. It's not grounded. So, so we can't use it according to Beis Shammai to annul an oath. That's what we're learning now. But Beis says no, you can use it if you can annul a vow, then annul an oath.
Beis Shammai is saying since we don't have a verse, can't.
Yeah, I'm adding that in.
Oh, you're
I'm adding that in.
Uproot a derisa, a shavua, the
Right.
power of a derisa.
Right.
Reminds me of like Christians going for confession or something.
Right.
Like, oh, just
So it's a dookie. Whole thing.
Right. Right, probably. Okay, we have a new Mishnah.
What was the last one?
Rabbi Naftali said the Tzedukim possibly wouldn't accept this
This whole thing.
Oh, because
because it doesn't have a biblical source.
No scriptural basis.
Okay, the Mishnah says like this: Hare netias ha'elu karban emein niktasis. These saplings. Oh wow!
oh,
Perfect.
Professor Props.
This is a papaya.
It's a marijuana plant. So it doesn't-
To you, every
it wasn't
plant is a
cooked.
marijuana plant. That was the papaya, right? You know,
I have no idea what that is.
do you eat papaya? Have you ever eaten
Do
a
I eat papaya? Yeah, but
Okay.
I don't get the plant. My wife brings home a papaya.
And now you bring up a sapling for the Gemara.
Yeah.
It'll grow to be
No.
big. Yeah, it's the big. It's
Well, it doesn't grow that big. What is it? 10 feet.
10 feet.
You never saw the professor's papaya.
Okay.
Well, it's really
This. Oh, really?
Yeah, we love papaya. We have paparazzi.
Let's see what the next prop
No,
will be.
the papaya has a lot of interesting discussions on it because in halacha, because we make a hadama on the papaya. Even though,
It's
look
like
at it,
a
it's
banana.
well, it's different than a banana. A banana only gives you one fruit. The papaya gives you more than one fruit. You will continue to give fruits for like 3 years.
Good.
Right. The only thing is, but now the problem is, if it only gives fruits for 3 years, then how do you eat it? It's going to be arla. So first of all, it has a hollow trunk.
Inside it's hollow.
Yeah.
Really?
Also, it doesn't last for more than 3 years. So it can't be. It will last up to 4 years, but it doesn't really. It can't be that it asrid fruits on trees that don't even go past 3 years. Another reason is that it doesn't grow the fruits on the it has no branches. It only grows on the tree itself. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's 5 reasons that why it should be permitted, but not. Okay.
Look at the things we learn in Daf Yomi.
Yeah.
Just before we leave very quickly. So when it says in here, Muka She'eno O Katzba, is that coming to say that Dina de Malkusa does not apply because
Right.
it's effectively a thief?
Right. Yeah. We say Adam on tomatoes. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why. Why do we say Adam is on tomatoes? Because it's only one season. Well, a vine is a eighth. A vine is a eighth. I mean, grapes and passion. But, because it grows so low. Oh, maybe because it grows low. No, but they grow low to the ground. So strawberries.
Are you serious?
I never saw that. Maybe blueberries or raspberries.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I saw blueberries and raspberries. You're right.
Yeah,
Blueberries are eights.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why we make a difference. Why we say ha'etz on the blueberries and raspberries. Yeah, nice. Okay. I just went last week.
Really?
I was off for a day. Took the kids. Okay. Ray, he says, carbon remain excessus. This sapling, it's a sapling. I can't say, but if someone says that this sapling is a sacrifice, if it's not cut down, well, it's not cut down. Well, okay. Or he says, talasu carbon remain in the strefus. Or this, talus, this garment is a sacrifice if it's not burned. As long as it's not burnt, it's a sacrifice. If it gets burnt, then it's not a sacrifice.
But
The
that's
sapling.
the same question with the sapling. How can the sapling be sacrifice or consequence?
Oh, well, what we're talking about, there's 2 pshatim in this Mishnah. Ran quotes 2 interpretations. Does he mean that it's a neder and he's not going to have benefits from it, which that's one of the ways of making a neder, was you say it's a carbon, or does he mean that it's a carbon for everyone and it's actually the value of it takes on, it becomes consecrated? Not that he can't eat it, it becomes holy. Not only that he can't eat it, becomes holy. 2 interpretations. Well, over here, we say, look at what we say. We say, yesh lehen pidyon. I don't know how you have the other interpretation. Yesh lehem pidyon means that it does become holy, and he redeems it. Obviously, we're talking about that it becomes holy. Let's say he says that these are a carbon until they're cut down, or talazu carbon ad. It's not a condition. It's saying a limit on it. The first one was a limit. The first one was a condition. If they don't get cut down, then it's a carbon. Here he's saying they're a sacrifice, they're a carbon until they're cut down. Or it's a carbon until it gets burned. Then ein lahem pidyon, then it can't be redeemed. Okay. The Ran explains that how could it be pidyon if it's really a vow? If it's a vow, how could there be pidyon? So there is an opinion of Reb Meir, the Ran quotes, that holds that if someone takes a vow and he uses the word carbon and then he violates the vow, he violates the rules of Me'ilah, because the kainam actually makes it holy. Now, if he makes it just for himself, then he doesn't violate. Forbidden for himself, he doesn't violate Me'ilah. But if he makes it forbidden for everyone, then it really takes on the status of a sacrifice. and he violates Me'ila, as Me'ila means when he takes personal benefit from things that belong to the temple. So even though the whole time we're talking about, we never mentioned this, that there's a violation of Me'ila in this, but actually we had it in the Rambam recently. But nevertheless, according to Reb Meir, this would apply, I think from Pascas like that. So if that's the case, if there's Me'ila, then there's also redemption. Okay. The Gemara says, why did you jump into redemption? Why don't you start off saying, listening Kedushas, vein Kedushas? Why don't you start off saying that it became holy? Isn't that the more basic statement? First, that it's holy. If it's holy, then maybe we can discuss redemption, but you missed the main point. The main point was that you said that it got holy, or it doesn't get holy. There's different interpretations, different versions of the text here. If you're supposed to say vein Kedushas, there's ways of explaining it, so let's leave it in. The Gemara answers, I did the Bailamistni say vein lampidion, because you wanted to say that it can't be redeemed. So why is it not redeemed in the case? We'll see in the Gemara. You have to wait. We're not going to. Tomorrow the Gemara is going to explain the reason why. What the Gemara is going to say is, well, there's two reasons, but basically that even after he redeems it, we said his vow was that this is consecrated until it's cut down. So now, okay, it's consecrated, so he redeems it. But right after it gets consecrated again, because it was consecrated until it cuts down, it wasn't cut down yet. Every time he redeems it, it just keeps consecrated again. So that's one of the interpretations. Well,
Excuse me, does this whole mission have any logical connection to the Mishnah before? Is this a completely new subject?
I think it's a new subject.
I'm trying to make.
We say, I did by the mistake safe and lampidian tenanamiresha yesh lampidian. Really, we should have said that it becomes consecrated, but because in Seifa we said in the end of the Mishnah, Seifa means then, the end of the Mishnah we said that it cannot be redeemed. So we wanted to keep it symmetrical, and in the beginning of the Mishnah we used that it can be redeemed. But really, what we meant to say is that it gets holy. Heichi Nadar, what was the case? What did he actually say? What was the vow? He said, if they don't get cut down today, then they're consecrated. Then they become a sacrifice. It's not cut down today. The day passed, it wasn't cut down. Okay, so it's consecrated. The Gemara says, that's a Mishnah. Pshita, that's the most obvious thing. He says this should be consecrated if this. It didn't happen, so I don't need to wait to the third chapter of Nedarim to tell me that if he has a stipulation, it becomes a vow. So, it says, talking about that there was a very strong wind. So he was expecting it to be cut down and so when he took the vow, he said that this should be consecrated if it's not cut down. He was 100% sure that it's going to be cut down. Maybe it has to do with the asmachta that we learned before. That he was relying. Why did he take the vow? Because he was relying on the fact that it's for sure going to come down by the hurricane. And it turned out that it didn't come down. So he never had in mind that it really be consecrated. So maybe we would say that it shouldn't work. We said no, it does work. Vaktani la gabi talis, vitalis streifa kaima. But how does that work? We said the talis. What are you going to tell me? If the talis doesn't get burnt, then it's consecrated. What are you going to tell me? That he was expecting it to get burnt? How was that happening? Says in, yeah, there was a fire. And so he thought for sure the talis is going to get burnt because there was a fire. Turns out the talis didn't get burnt. It was wrapped with the Ruziel Malach. It protects from fire. If that's the case, they can zikin afisha. Mistalka daitach the maska daited le misnatzlam misham hachi kanadar, because he thought that it would never be saved, and that's why he took the vow. And so therefore we should say that maybe the vow doesn't work. Kamashmalan, we say that the vow does work. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Would they take the actual object as an offering? Would they